Hello everyone, Miss Carrie here from Miss Carrie's Creations with some fun New Year cards you can create using stencils in your collection. Today I'm going to be using some New Year perspectives and the fireworks stencil from Bramble Fox to create some glittery New Year cards. I hope that you enjoy this process. I am taking a little break from memory keeping to show you how to create 2 cards with these new perspectives from Bramble Fox. These are a lovely golden color and are going to look beautiful on your New Year pages. On these cards, I'm going to be using some paste and stencil butter with the fireworks stencil. If you're not a card maker, the backgrounds that I'm going to show you how to make can be replicated on a scrapbook page. I would love to see those designs. If you make a page, make sure to share it in the Bramble Fox friend group and tag me so that I can see your lovely layout. I'm going to start with a white background first. I recommend a mixed media paper for this because it is a bit thicker and won't warp as we add all the different mediums. If you choose to use a white cardstock or a card base, it's best to prep that cardstock first. I have placed my paper onto a silicone mat with a magnetic board, and I'm going to start by adding some copper fireworks onto the background. I'm going to create a triangle shape of these around the center of the card. My perspective sentiment is going to sit there in the center, so most of these bursts are going to be going off of the edges. I like to use a silicone brush to apply the stencil butter. It has a thinner consistency and tends to get pushed easily under the detailed stencils like this one when I use a spatula. Once you have finished adding all of your fireworks, make sure to set this aside to dry. While it is drying, you're going to want to wash your stencil and any of the tools that you use to apply those images. Now that the first layer has set, I'm going to add a few little bursts with the glacier paste. This is a white glitter that is going to be subtle on the card, but it will add some beautiful glitter shine that's perfect for New Year's. Just like before, I'm adding these around the edges of the card, and I'm overlapping those copper fireworks here and there. That's why I wanted to make sure that everything was set and dry before I added this next layer. The fireworks stencil has multiple sizes on it, so make sure you take advantage of the different sizes of bursts as you add these images to your card or scrapbook background. Once the glacier paste had dried, I decided to bring in some blue shimmers paint and add a few little splatters. The blue contrasts beautifully with the copper color and the golden color of the perspective, and it's also going to match some other elements that I plan on adding to the card. Now I'm going to set this background aside and start working on the second one. I'm going to be using black cardstock, and this is a little bit thicker cardstock than a typical card base. It's not a mixed media paper because I ran out of my black mixed media paper, but it is thicker and it has a solid core, which I find to be beneficial when I'm using different pastes and mediums. Just like on the first card, I'm going to start by applying some copper stencil butter. I'm using the silicone brush and applying that butter in the same direction as the lines of the stencil. I'm also using a light touch so that none of that butter creeps underneath. Now, if you have problems with mediums getting under your stencil, a tacky spray works wonders. You just need to spray the tacky spray onto the back of your stencil, and it makes that stencil work almost like removable tape and seals all of the edges of the detailed images on your stencil. So as you can see, I have gone ahead and washed my stencil and my tools, and I've moved on to the glacier paste. The copper paste has dried so that I can layer the glacier paste firework bursts over the copper ones. This application is the same process as before, but this time you can see that glacier paste really shows up on that black cardstock. It has such a bright white shine that I just love, and it looks just like fireworks in the night sky. Once the copper paste and glacier paste were dried, I decided that I wanted to bring in a turquoise color. This is another stencil butter, and I'm just going to use it to add a few little bursts here and there. This background that I'm creating would be so much fun to make on a theme park scrapbook page or a New Year scrapbook page or even a 4th of July layout. For those of you who are not mixed media fans, this type of background could be easily replicated with your inks or embossing powders. There are so many possibilities with this type of stencil. Once I had finished adding all of the stenciled images, I decided that I wanted to add a few little splatters with a white pen. This is my favorite little paint pen that I like to use for splatters. The paint does dry quickly, and I like how easy it is to control. The splatters are very, very tiny, unless you add lots of ink to the tip of your brush, and then you can make the splatters even bigger. So now that we have created all of the backgrounds with our different pastes, let's go ahead and build the 2 cards. The first card I'm going to create is an A2 size card using that white background we created. Before I start adhering everything in place, I want to stamp a sentiment in the lower left corner. I am using a stamping platform or stamp positioner for this because some of that sentiment is going to overlap the fireworks and the paint that I added. So I might need to stamp this more than once, and a stamp positioner comes in handy when you need to stamp multiple times. I am going to stamp the word New Year's in black ink, and then once I've added the word New Year's, I'm going to stamp the word Happy above it. So after I added those words Happy New Year, I decided to wrap some blue ribbon around the card, and then I adhered this white cardstock onto a blue background, which went onto a card base. I did also create a little bow with that ribbon, and I attached it in place with a glue dot. The perspective I'm using says Hello 2023. I'm going to make sure that I peel off all of that vinyl on the background before I place this down onto my card. Since there are quite a few layers of different pastes on this card, I'm going to be using some glossy highlights to glue it in place. I'm just going to add a few little dots of glue on the back of the perspective, and then I'll hold it in place for a few minutes until it is stuck there. Now off camera, I did add a few little blue pearls, and here we have our completed card. I love the way that blue and gold look together. So let's go ahead and move on to our next A2 size card. This one is the black background that we created, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of lace and washi tape across the base. The washi tape I used has a coppery pattern on it, and it was a bit translucent, so I placed it onto some white cardstock before I stitched it onto the lace. I did place the black cardstock background onto a foam backing sheet before I added it onto a craft colored card base because I wanted a little bit of dimension there. I like how that craft color offsets all the bright colors and is going to bring out the color of the perspective. Off camera, I assembled a white flower that I created using some dies, and in the center of this flower, I added some little glittery pearls. Now you could add any die cut here, but I really like the addition of florals on my projects. Around that perspective, I'm going to bring in some gold flatback pearls, and I'm just going to adhere these in place, and then we're going to have another completed card. So here are the 2 cards we created today using those New Year perspectives and the firework stencil. Each one of these uses the same techniques, the same stencil butters, and the same types of perspectives, but they do look very different from each other. I would love to know which one you like more, the white background or the black. Now I'm going to share a few close-ups of these 2 cards so that you can see them in a little bit more detail. I want you to remember that the techniques I shared with you today are ones that you can use on your scrapbook pages too. The layers of paste that I created behind the 2 perspectives would make a lovely background on a scrapbook page you're creating for New Year's, a holiday, or a theme park vacation. I want to thank you for joining me for another project. I hope that this inspired you to try something new. If you would like to see more of my projects, you can visit my channel or follow Miss Carrie's Creations online. If you have any questions about these 2 cards or the supplies I used, feel free to comment below. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.